Okay, it is 5 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order, February 13th, 2023. Let's please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, yeah, I am. Tom Chiappa,
Here.
Pamela Dowd. Here. Jim McKenzie.
Here.
Sean Onmacht.
Here.
Heidi Sweeney.
Here.
Dave Crisafulli.
Here.
And Lisa Glidden is here. I think Maura said she could not make it. All right, our first order of business this evening is the superintendent's report.
All right. Good evening, board. Back. Good to see everybody back. And tonight we want to just kind of jump right in. Tonight to just kind of get some final pieces here that will help us with being able to pull together some essential parts of our budget. So you know the goals for our budget, be fiscally sound, create a budget that's flexible, foolproof, flowing, and that's aligned with our strategic plan and considers long-term perspective. So at our last meeting, we shared a couple different budget considerations, and we'd like to just go down each one of them one at a time and to see where you are at as a board. I know you had some time here to think through things and just wanted to see where folks were. I think tonight what we'd like to start with is the tax exemption piece for seniors. So as we see it, there are really two options that can really, as we move forward, that we can kind of select from. The first is the status quo. Basically, that means doing nothing. The exemptions would basically stay in the current range. And the range right now is between 17.5K and it goes up to 25.9K. That's where we are currently. That's the current max. Or you can, do some incremental increase. You could raise it past 25.9K. Just so you're aware, we did check on some things here today and wanted to make sure we had information there for you. The county, recently raised its exemption to 37.4K last year. So theirs is up. They've moved theirs up a little bit. So if you want to consider that, certainly that's something that you can consider. Just wanted to share that with you. And then some other important information. So all municipalities, by the way, do have different thresholds. And then any increase to the exemption is going to need to be covered by other, all the other existing taxpayers. So when you give one exemption to one group, somehow we have to still figure out how do we raise that, and so the other taxpayers, that cost gets added on to other taxpayers. Nancy, you want to share a little bit, anything else from what I've just shared, maybe?
Well, I think you have it all covered. There's you don't have to make a decision. We can leave everything like it is, or you can increase it. But we do need to know at tonight's meeting because of the March 1st deadline for the county tax or the city and county tax rolls.
Okay, all right. So I guess we're open for conversation from the board to see where you're at, basically, see if we can gain some consensus. Board feedback.
Nancy, is there any way to know how many people this affects?
No, that's one of the problems with these exemptions. We never get anything to say, this is how many people would qualify so that we can calculate what cost it would be.
Right.
So when we're talking about these ranges, so the way it's currently set, if it said the current range is 17,500 to 25,900, right? That's household income to be eligible to receive the reduction?
I believe it is.
Okay, so if you made $16,000 a year, you're not eligible for the reduction?
Well, that's where I'm not clear. I think there might be two ranges, like 0 to 16 and then 17
And then this would be
to
the next one?
27. It wasn't clear when I got the rates from the ranges from the county, what they were.
And so this.
But I would think that that would not be true. I would think that they would have to have an exemption.
Something. But so for this range, what we're talking about is if the household income was in this range, they would see a 50% reduction in their school tax levy?
Yes.
From last week, is that what I remember correctly?
Yes.
Okay. I would just say, at least personally, I think if the county has done that, I would be in favor of staying in line with what the county is doing. Given that that's a household income and the way inflation's been going, I think it's reasonable to kind of stay with our other municipalities. That's just me personally.
Oh, go ahead, Pam.
I would agree with Jim. I was thinking the same. The county did the 37.4. I would be willing to exempt at 30, up to that 37.4 also.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say, I think it's just important to note that this is the way taxes work, right? I mean, it spreads like we realize that people who are younger than 65 may have to pay a little bit more because of this, but this is by spreading it around, right? And having such a large group of people combining, this is how we get our services. And generally, our seniors are not going to be using our services quite as much. And it's, it's just sort of the community nature of the way taxes work to have. So I would be fine. I would certainly be fine having it go to 37.4 so that we can match the county. It sounds like maybe we want to stay there. I would be okay with going higher than that as well, just because it's, I mean, I think that actually, depending on how many people are in the household, is still the poverty line. So,
Can I ask a question? So ours is currently at a range because we have different municipalities, town of Scriba, town of Oswego, city of Oswego. Is that why we have the range?
No,
No.
each municipality has their own range.
Oh, okay. So if we were to agree to move the max to the 37.4, what would be our new minimum? Where would be our range?
I think our minimum would still stay at the 17.5.
But we're just
but
increasing
you're
the top
increasing.
number. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too.
does anyone else want to weigh in, or we can, I don't know, we can vote on this now, or we can vote on it, I know we don't have a motion under finance, but we can do it under finance, might be the better place if people want to think about it for a few minutes. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. All right, so the additional other items that we have here, we'll just kind of go down them one at a time. So the first one is additional teaching staff. So I shared last week, my thought was that I don't think that right now at this time that we need to add additional teaching staff. I know there was a comment, I think Jim shared last week, that with respect to right sizing, if we have the ability to right size without sacrificing other levels, that would be great. I think also Jim mentioned we can right size in July and August. That would be good, and that would be the course of path that I think we should do. I think what we should do is just in July and August, when the new registrations come in, if we need to do some right sizing, move around, I think we should do that. I personally don't think, based on the data that we looked at, which kind of looked and showed us as a region how we're looking, right? And then we looked at, ranges of, you could do K through 2, 18 to 20, and then 20 up for, the next grade levels, 3 up. I really think that we can do that right sizing ourselves through the summer. I would not recommend adding additional staffing really at any of the levels at this point in time. That would be my thought. So with that said, I'm just open to what the board needs to say. Make sure that we're good.
So just to clarify for what the district's process is in terms of doing that right sizing over the summer, is that generally decisions that the principals are making for their own buildings, knowing their enrollment and their staff? Or is it, so just to
Principals.
make sure that it happens?
Yes. Principals, district office, we all sit together, we look at, who's doing what in terms of class sizes, who's got what, do we need to open other classes, do we need to, if there's too many in one school versus the other school, how do we work that out? That all is generally worked out every summer. That's
Okay.
the way that goes, basically. Yeah. And usually it's definitely done the summertime because, you can get some ideas before the school year, but you just don't know. People leave, move out over the summer, new people register. I mean, kindergarten, registration starts July 1st all the way up until the end of August, sometimes September, so.
Just on that note, for the general public out there, teacher aides are need-based. They would be added as needed, correct?
Yes.
You're speaking of
Aides
a
are-
classroom teacher, you don't see where we need to add.
Correct.
But obviously,
Right.
Need-based positions are addressed as the need arises.
Correct, yes. Yeah, if there's a need for an aide, yes, we kind of look at that. Some kids come in and they need a one-to-one aide, right? So, yes.
So I guess my question would be then, within this budget, if there was a need to hire an additional 1, 2, 3 K through 6 teachers, is the money in the budget, is there enough money in other areas of the budget that
Yes.
we could repurpose and relocate?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess then my only other comment would be that I kind of like to see us make this initiative up front in the budget so that the principals and everybody else know it's there as a resource as opposed to having to ask to take money from other pools. My concern really stems from looking at this year's first grade and wondering why last July and August we didn't right-size more to help those grades that are happening right now. So I understand the right sizing, but from the study and from the numbers we received during that discussion, it looks like our, if I remember correctly, the cohort from, September, October, that first grade in a couple buildings, there were like 3 classes that were, in my opinion, extremely high, and we didn't right size to help those. So I just kind of want to make sure we're in the best position that we're going to do that if necessary.
It wasn't that we didn't, right?
Okay.
That's not true, Jim. So first of all, you have to keep in mind that children come in at all times throughout the year. Sometimes they come in September, sometimes they come in October, sometimes in November. So as we're going through our study, things were changing. Data was changing constantly because of who's coming in and who's coming out of the district. So yes, we have a couple class sizes with 20 and 22. And so when you're in the middle of the year, you try to do the best you can. And what we've done is, in some classes, depending on what the needs were, there were some aides or there were assistants that were attached to the classrooms. So for example, like in reading, we have now, please help me with the reading intervention that we do now, team time. And what happens in reading is that classes are broken down into different groups. So the special ed teacher comes in, some of our AIS support staff are there, the classroom teacher's there. So in reading, it's broken down, and now we have smaller groups for the reading to help bring during the reading time down when they're doing intervention. There's some extra people, their hands there to help out with those particular areas. But sometimes you can start out the year with smaller numbers, and sometimes those numbers will get a little bit bigger depending on who walks in the door, when they walk in the door. I think that, again, I go back and I say, I really feel like this can be done. When we looked at our study from this year, we showed you how across the region, our class sizes were smaller than most people in the whole entire region. And not only that, we also showed you how we didn't need 100 sections. We could do it with 95, 96 sections, and you still had a couple extra people that you can put in there. I really think this can be done during the year, through the summer. And if there's a need for somebody extra, as you've said already, there's extra in the budget. I mean, if you have to add an extra position, then you add the extra position. That's my feeling.
So do we want any additional discussion on this, or to have a formal vote on adding up additional position?
I think the only other thing too is that if we're going to start requiring certain numbers, like maybe in the future the board might want to think about what range it really wants, because so there is no set criteria right now for what you want K through 2 and then 3 through 4. So to kind of come out the blue with a number, that's challenging because you don't have a number that you've set in place. We've shared with you what's in the region, but one year to the next, change it just based on, it really should kind of align a little bit with what you see across your region. And even then, I think there should be flexibility in there, because you could get one classroom that has 21, and then you can have 3 or 4 others with 18 or 17, depending on what part of the district those kids are in. So I'm just suggesting too.
Yeah. I mean, I would not be comfortable setting specific numbers or targets because you also, I would imagine at some point it's up to the teachers too, who have started 3 months in a classroom with a group of students and they don't want to have the disruption for that child of moving them to a different class. So, I mean, I guess I'm comfortable with it as if the right sizing is happening over the course of the summer and there are, you know, that as long as the teachers are aware, the administrators are aware that there is money, should they need to create another section, you know, we could do that, but,
And if you want, you could put more money in your budget if you want to, and then if you need them, go from there. I mean, you can add. It's up to you. I mean, if you're having that hesitation or concern, you can put an extra 2, 5, 6 teachers in your budget. I don't think you need it, but if you want it to help everybody feel settled, that's fine too.
I mean, I think okay. Any other feedback on this?
No, the only thing I was going to say, I think it is, because we have not determined that set level, and Jim, I would go back to, we're basically working off the OCTA number in the contract, right, which I believe was 25? Correct? Huh? Troy?
We have a contractual cap,
Right?
but we've had some pretty set practices over the years with K-3 lately with our literacy work, then 4, 6. Then you get into the secondary classes that are run a little bit differently in terms of setting those caps.
Yeah, and I'm clear on that, Heidi. I'm just saying, we haven't had that discussion to get to it. And I know your general influence, or your propensity, Jim, is to smaller class size, understood. But we haven't had that discussion yet, and maybe we need to. But at this point right now, moving forward with this decision, I don't know as if we need to dedicate that money to it if we know the money's there, and we have been following that and right-sizing all along. What do you think? I'm asking.
I don't see the evidence of the right sizing based on the numbers we saw, which is where my concern is. If we're going to just say, we know that based on our history, we have $4 million left over on average each year. All right, we've got money. We're not spending $400,000 on a curriculum item, right? That's ending this year. So there's extra money in there. As long as we know, the principals know, folks know, right, when talking with the principal, as long as it gets right-sided, I don't care. I just think that talking about 24, 25 in a K through 3 classroom is far too many students.
We have never 24, 25.
Never?
I have the data
we
right.
can-
I have the data right here in front of me. We have not. No.
So
we
there's
have not
20
had
there's not-
24, 25. That's not true, Jim.
I'll stop.
Yeah, I don't see
You
24.
said last week, we'll just agree to disagree on this.
I agree. I have the data here from the 11-1 presentation that we talked about, and the highest number for a class size was over at Frederick Layton School. That one had a 23 section. That was not 24, 25. Even that number is of concern to us. I think that, yes, as I said before, if you want to put some extra in your budget, you can put extra in your budget. That's fine to do. Sometimes you just I think you need to keep in mind, when you're doing 20, you get a classroom that has 23 in it. So you can put another teacher in, which now you have to end up taking a little bit from this class, some from that class. It's transition in the middle of the year. Sometimes it's not something that's worth it. But whatever is going to make it best for the group, whatever you'd like.
Does anyone else want to weigh in on this? So are we okay with then planning to right-size over the summer, and if we need to add positions, can take it from existing sources in the budget, or do we want to add a line, not a line, add a position in the budget starting out? So far, Tom said he's okay with right-sizing, I'm okay with right-sizing. Jim would like an extra line. or additional money?
I'm okay with right-sizing if that's what we do. What I said is my argument becomes, if we know the money's budgeted in there, I feel as there's a propensity more to view that as a resource, as opposed to it not being there and viewing people having to go then cut from other budget lines. So it's more of a way that you approach it. As long as it gets done, that's the only thing I'm concerned about.
Okay. Okay, so I think we'll strike that from adding that into the budget, not adding it into the budget, just to clear my negatives there.
Okay. All right, the next item is STEM programming. So we have proposed, adding some STEM pieces for students. So there's some cost there for extracurricular co-advisors. We'd like to do some things with Project Lead the Way, which can be aided, robotics, and then esports with students. So the Project Lead the Way would be at elementary, 8,500. The esports we would the robotics we would do at the middle school. We try to start these each there, and then esports we start at the high school. And this is something that can grow each year, and the goal is to add a little bit more in terms of STEM instruction for students. So we looked at a cost of around $35,000. Wanted to know the board's thoughts on that.
Well, I was two things. Can you explain a little bit more Project Lead the Way? Give me a little more
Sure.
clarity on that.
Project Lead the Way is a program. It's a STEM program, and basically it involves science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So students, they build small machines. They use mathematics to create different types of objects. Robotics, they do some coding. The goal is to get students at an early age, wherever possible, interested in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics skills. So kids will be building robots or building different parts, and they don't even recognize they're using their math or what they've learned in reading or science to do that because they're having such a good time. So Project Lead the Way is a program that is kind of really all across the state. We've had it here before in the district, but they had it at the high school level. So they have programs at elementary, middle school, and high school. It's a great program just to get kids interested in STEM instruction. Really a good program.
Is that part of the curriculum, or is that also a after-school
So
for them?
it can be a part of your science curriculum. It is aligned with the New York State Next Generation standards. Some people use it as a full-scale class, for the middle school, high school. Some people at the elementary use it to supplement with the science, and some people use it for after-school kinds of activities for those children who are interested in doing it, basically.
And my second thing on that is, when I look at this relative to everything else, I'm a big proponent of this, and I think that in terms of going along with our mission statement to inspire, and the closer to the elementary level that we can get this, and the visual stimulation that's brought from it, and the active component, at least from my vantage point, I think is very valuable. And when I look at it and go, we're only putting $35,000 into it, I'd like to see it on a larger scale and be more impactful throughout the district. That's just how I see it. I'd like to know how other people feel about it. But I would like to see it larger than this.
I personally think we've been behind the 8 ball on all of these. It's time for the district to do this initiative, but they're aided, but at this point, I'm comfortable with the 35,000 to get it started off. Let's see how it rolls, and then you can add to it from there, because I think you'll have a better idea of where you need to add to, or what you need to add on to, once we get it off the ground and rolling. But yes, I am definitely in favor of the STEM programming. Again, we're behind the 8 ball on this. COVID didn't help. We probably would have been there by now, but our time warp of our pandemic. So I'm in favor.
So I would also be in favor of taking some more kind of bolder action here, and maybe it doesn't have to be too bold, but I'm wondering even if we could maybe have something like seed money for teachers who are trying to develop new courses, that they could implement, or some way, of really getting this into our curriculum in ways that it's not, and maybe not even only in like science classes, but I think one of the ways that this kind of works well is when it really is in everything. So you don't necessarily realize what you're, that what you're doing is like a STEM activity, right? But even with like, video game creation, striving for historical accuracy, and digital tools, and, so I think that there are ways that teachers may be interested in putting it in, and if they knew that there was some, budget money available for them that they could look into to do this research or to try some things out, I'd be in favor of adding that in.
Don't we have a line already set aside for curriculum writing, if I remember correctly? I can't recall off the top of my head, but.
We have PD money set aside for teachers to attend PE related to,
Okay.
if they want to make a STEM, well, really any PD, but there isn't a separate item in
Okay.
the budget for curriculum.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I just wanted to check on that for a minute.
Did we used to have a couple of these years ago, like the
Pro-
robotics and stuff like
Robotics
that?
was in the high
Robotics,
school.
And
and
did that go
Project Lead the
away?
Way.
Because I know they used to do like the battery or just solar cars and stuff like that. And did that go away because of funding or just because of lack of interest?
So I've kind of tried to just talk with folks to see what their thoughts were. So a lot of this kind of just stopped prior to the pandemic. And there wasn't really, I think, maybe pandemic, but some of it stopped just before the pandemic. And there wasn't a lot of, was it student interest, or I didn't really hear, that people weren't willing to do it. It just kind of stopped. It's one of those things, some of these things just kind of stopped. But you'd had Project Lead the Way, I know, in the high school, and then robotics. Now, I don't know, Heidi, you were with the secondary, maybe you can help me with some of the context? or
We
history?
did Project Lead the Way here at the high school for a long time. Part of it was the cost related to some of the training that's required, and it's extensive, so there was a concern with the trained teachers and how much time they would have to spend attending some of the RIT sessions. So it did kind of fade away when we started to have new standards to review and incorporate. I do like the elementary aspect of Project Lead the Way nowadays. I think that's a nice thing to have in. Our robotics club was pretty robust. They went to a lot of good competitions locally. I think it was just pre-pandemic. A particular group of seniors graduated. The next year, we had COVID and a lot of things got shut down, and it just never picked back up again. But I think a little advertising and recruiting, it could get back up and going. And esports has been a baby of mine for a long time, so I'm very excited, and I would love to see even a little more money in there, because some of the county schools, high schools, have been really outfitting some
have been.
very cool esports labs. And 10,000 is a nice number to get it started, but might need a little bit more to really kick it off.
Any grants out there that we know of to help get esports started, or even robotics? Anything that could give a boost to any?
I'm sure there are grants, international grants, but locally I have not heard of any grants. However, the nice thing is that it's aided through BOCES, right? So, and if we did the BOCES, usually, you get 80% or plus back, basically. So.
So Tom, did you have a number in mind to try to beef this up a bit, or?
Well, particularly so it's aidable potentially at 80%. That's potential, but it's not actual. We're pretty confident we would get that.
Confident. Yes.
Nancy,
I'm
you
very
think?
Following year.
Right, but still aidable, correct?
Yes.
At 80%. And I look at that, it's $35,000. I would double it at minimum. I would think we would double it at minimum, with what aidable at that level, because of what component that we'd be putting out.
I'm giving her the nod, yes, more money.
But that's just how I see it, but.
Sure. aidable amount is. Okay? I would say, right now we're throwing numbers out there, but I would say at least if you want to raise it up a little bit, maybe 50 might do it. 50 or 60 at the most, I would say, but
50 or 60 was what the number I had in my head. I think 35 is a great starting point, but just like we talked about with kids getting back into school, like if your passion is sports or theater or band, I think kids that are passionate about this, we need to step up and bring these kids to something that they want to do, whether it's Project Lead the Way, robotics, STEM, esports. And 50 and 60 was kind of my ballpark figure.
I think you'll definitely, your next year, you're going to see, especially like the esports, it's going to grow pretty quickly because the kids are ready for it right now. So I think definitely you'll be ready for a bigger amount a year from now for sure. But
I just want to say that if this does pass, I think it is a great opportunity for the students to do things they love, and I think it's going to be very important for students to grow in those fields and do things that they don't really know could be part of the science and math curriculum while still doing things that they love and bringing that to the school. It'd definitely improve sports, maybe participation, and it would expand kind of the inclusiveness of the school in a way. So I think that this is a great idea.
Thank you, Maura. Okay, I hate to give Nancy this much agita right before dinner time, but can we settle on 60?
Yeah.
Nodding?
Okay.
Okay,
all right, great.
thank you.
All right, the next issue is the 5-hour typist. So we did go back, add in the benefit cost. The cost goes from the $50,000 to up to $88,115.02 with benefits. If the staff take the benefits, that's what the maximum amount is what we see right now. Keeping in mind that every year that number goes up, or it could go down depending on who is hired or who retires, basically. So your thoughts on that, board?
I've witnessed, granted it was a couple of years back, so I'm going to say it's even busier now. I have seen what it's like, at least in the buildings, maybe not so much middle school, but definitely grade school and high school. Those mornings and that dismissal time is very hectic. Everything is going on always at those 2 times a day. I am fully in support of adding the typists from 5 hours increased to full-time for the 11 months. Again, we're probably overdue on doing that, so fully support that.
Does anyone have concerns with this proposal? It seems like we're all very supportive. Yes. So,
Okay, all right. Head bus driver. So this one is a new position that we're proposing. Really, the goal is to help with the transportation department with, day-to-day operations, training, a number of items, health and safety items as well. We'd like this person to help us with monitoring. We want to start doing some additional random checking of what's happening on buses, so we want this person to help us with that as well. And really, right now, the only person we have that has that oversight is just Tom. And so it's very busy. He is some days putting in 12-hour days trying to really run it all on his own, but he could use some help in this area. So what we'd like to do is if we can get a head bus driver, that person can do some of the training, that person can do a lot of the support, the paperwork, help with some of the oversight in the area. And many districts do have head bus drivers, so we are suggesting that, but we're open to your feedback, board.
So, I would be supportive of this. I think, I know that there are people in this district who are pitching in at transportation a lot to help that go, which is wonderful, but when they do that, it also means they're out of their jobs, which means that other people have to. So it does seem like this is a position that, just to echo what Pam's been saying, probably should have been done previously, and would be beneficial, because we also want Tom to not be overtaxed in his job and to have a clear head about what he's doing.
I mean, just another example, so Tom, like wintertime is busy. So we start our calls at 3:30, 3:45 in the morning. And part of that call, so we'll call and we'll have a discussion about what the weather's looking like, what's the roads looking like. And then when that is over, usually what will happen is Tom will say to me, okay, he's going out and he's going to check the roads himself. So he's going to drive the roads. So he's hitting west side, east side, he's taking the roads. And then we get back together around 4:15-ish, 4:30-ish to figure out whatever the call is going to be for that day. And then drivers are coming in at about 5:15, 5:30, they're already there getting ready for that first run for the high school or out-of-district placements. So he's often there up until 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And some of actually later, 5:30, depends on the day and what's going on. So the buses from the afternoon from the school runs are not done. They pick up the kids at 3:30, but he's still on call or he's still working way past the normal hours just to try to help with that oversight to make sure if something goes wrong with the kids on the buses, somebody's still, that's what his day is like, especially winter-wise. It gets really, really busy, just an FYI.
Yeah, I think he definitely needs this position, especially a lot of times I'll see him out driving the bus. And I know
Yes.
when he's done driving that bus, he's got to start his day because all the phone calls that came in and everything else. So he definitely has way too much on his plate. So I would support this.
Also, and this is not just with this district, all of them have the issue of shortage of bus drivers,
Yes.
and there's not a
Yes.
large sub-list going on. That's why we have our director driving buses. So I also would support this position.
Okay. Any concerns about this? All right, I think we can go ahead.
Okay. All right, and then the last piece here is around security staffing. So our suggestion was an additional SRO at the high school who could also be available to go to other schools if there was something that came up right away, but also kind of, just help and support at the high school. And so we would keep 1 at the middle school, 2 at the high school. One of those 2, again, can rotate. And what we suggested was really, when we talked with the elementary principals, trying to increase behaviorist support / social workers kind of support. We did put in 3 additional folks here who could fall in that range, and the goal would be to help with, behavior with a person who's got that background behavior-wise, but also, where possible, try to get someone who also has that social work background who can also go out and support the families with whatever social needs that they might have, social work needs that they might have. Your thoughts?
Does the cost of those have the benefits already in it?
Yes. Yeah.
And so to clarify, the additional SRO would be, I think you said for the high school?
Yes.
Right, and then, yeah. I think we talked about this a little bit in the last one. So yeah, I would support this one. I don't know if anyone else would like to weigh in on it.
I just have a question. Behaviorists, what would we wouldn't know until you put it out, but we would be looking for more that they would have experience in elementary, in school buildings, in classrooms, as opposed to just sheerly that clinical experience. Because there's a big difference to just sit in your office or to then be actual out into the buildings and, working with the students in the classroom. So again, we can't make a guarantee until we would put out and see, but that's what we would be leaning towards, is behaviorists that would have more experience with the elementary level and in classrooms.
Primarily elementary level, yes. We'd like someone who has, if they could, the best thing we could get is someone who has both the elementary and the behaviorist kind of, clinical experience. If we can find that, that would be a real plus. And or if they have that social work experience as well too. Part of the social workers' work is they can do counseling, they can do supporting of students as well. So, that we would be looking for someone some folks who have that kind of background.
The other question I had on the bottom of that, it said staffing 1 per elementary school, but then it
Yes.
says times 3.
Yes, so we have currently one at one of our one is at an elementary school that's a full-time behaviorist. We have one that's done through a special education grant, so we currently have 2 people. We need 3 more, basically.
Thanks.
Okay?
All right, so I guess if there's no concerns about this, we can move ahead with that inclusion in the budget. Okay.
All right. Okay, so that's all we have tonight. Thank you. What we'll do is we'll put this into the budget and we'll bring it back at our next board meeting. Okay? All right.
Thank you. All right, we had just one item on our consent agenda today, which is the Board of Education report from February 13th. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tom.
I'll
Second?
second it.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next up, we have some personnel items. Okay, thanks, Nancy.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. A is a professional staff recommendation for retirement as presented.
Okay, is there a motion for A?
Make the motion.
Thank you, Pam. Second?
I'll second.
Tom? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Go ahead, Nancy.
B, professional staff recommendation resignation at the middle school as presented.
Okay, is there a motion for B?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Heidi. Second?
I'll second.
Dave, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
C is our support staff recommendation for resignation as presented.
Okay, is there a motion for C as presented?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Jim. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Pam, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And D is the extra compensatory position recommendations for unified sports as presented.
Okay, is there a motion for D?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tom. Second?
I'll second it.
Heidi, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so,
So finance, we can amend the agenda, right? To add a vote for the senior exemptions, which would read that the board approve the tax exemption for seniors to increase the level, the income level to 37,400 as presented.
okay. Is there a motion for, actually, to amend the agenda?
Amending the agenda, yeah.
I'll move to amend the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Is there a second?
Second.
it.
Okay, I think I heard Tom first. Any discussion on amending the agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if she moved the motion already,
Yep,
right?
So I'll move the
discussion.
motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay. Any discussion? I mean, I guess, I don't know that people actually read our minutes, but if we could include the website or process that people have to follow to request the exemption, I don't know.
Yeah,
It-
I don't.
It was
I
in the
don't-
news article.
Yeah.
I think they go to the county, yeah.
We can put something on the website. It usually doesn't go on the minutes, but we can put it on the website.
Okay,
Sure.
okay.
I'll have Jamie put that up tomorrow.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, items from the board, oh, sorry, student representative discussion.
So over the weekend, we had the Cinderella musical, and it was wonderful for anybody who went. I'd like to congratulate all the students and staff who put that together because they did an amazing job with that. The spring sports are starting soon, and we just started our second semester at the middle school and the high school, and students seem to be doing very well. Most of us are excited for the break next week. The BOCES and city students are doing good as well. A few of them just had the opportunity to spend a day showing off their talents, like what they're working on, and they got judged, and if they did a good job, they can move on to higher levels to continue getting judged. So I think that's a pretty cool opportunity to see what they're doing and how they're doing.
All right. Next, we have items from the board. I've got one item that I'd like to have a little bit of discussion on, because it's quite a long process if we choose to do it. But, we've been spending a lot of time trying to, and I think we've taken a lot of steps toward having our district have a strategic plan, right, moving ahead. It's 5 years long. We know from the evidence out there that districts that have kind of stability and long-term leadership tend to be higher performing districts. And so one of the things that I would like for the board to consider is amending our bylaws so that the term for board members would be 5 years. So if we do this, it's a 2-year process. We would have to approve it or agree to it. It would go out to the voters to approve. And then if it goes into effect, it would go into effect the following year. So this wouldn't impact this year's elections, but it would impact the 2024 board members who run for the board seats in 2024. So that's my reasoning for extending the term. I think it would, I think it helps with stability. There's definitely a steep learning curve to this position. I'm in my 3rd year now, and I still have lots of questions, but feel much more comfortable with a lot of things. And this is the final year of the term. And so I think to kind of bank on people having more stable years, understanding what's going on, would benefit the district. I don't know if anyone has thoughts on that.
I agree. 3 years is short when you have 2 of them are still in the learning process, and then you have 1 year left. So I have to agree with the 5-year term would create definitely more stability for a board to be able to get some good work done.
No, I agree 100%. I think a lot of times, and I think about this relative to education in general, that a lot of times districts are whipsawed back and forth every election you're replacing, and I've said this before, between 25% and 37% of your board, and that learning curve is very steep. So I think if you can have that longevity and you can have consistency and continuity, I think it will benefit the district overall to be able to just stick through. I know it's a longer term and a longer bite and a longer commitment, but I think it's, I agree with Lisa. I think it would be better for the district in the long term.
Okay, so if people are in agreement with it, I think the next step is I would have to reach out to Joe Shields, our attorney, and have him write up the bylaws change. And then we need to vote on it. And then ideally, we would get it on the ballot for the May, which I don't know what the deadline is for that. And Diane, I know you're also in your learning phase, but I do think we have some time. But I think we need to get it done next month.
So did you, I would assume then with a 5-year term, it would be like 1 seat up each year, or are you thinking you're proposing to alternate so many seats every other year?
Yeah, well, I mean, actually, it's a good question, because what will happen then is there would be time when there wouldn't be any seats up.
Right, there's options for how
Right,
I've seen
yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So you either go to at least one seat each year for 5 years, and then you have maybe 1 year where there's like 2 seats open or something. Or you go to an alternating
Right.
cycle.
And if this passes and it does go into effect, it would take a while to catch up because this is the year that has the most seats up, right? So Jim, Pam, and I are up this year. And these seats are still 3-year terms. So the 2 seats that are up next year would become 5-year terms. So it would take a while to kind of like go in on this, but the implications, I don't even know, I didn't map it out, but like 10 years from now could be that there's years where there are not elections.
Maybe Joe, when you reach out to
Yeah,
him,
I'm
he
sure
might
he's
have a
got more experience.
recommendation.
Yeah, I'll ask him. Okay.
I would just add, I'm in favor of learning more, as I try to be with all things. I'm not sure I'm set on this myself. I just know I would like to learn more about it, including from people like Joe or, Chris Todd. Are there other districts that are doing it? What do other how about people who are sitting on boards with 5 years? What are they thinking about it? So I'd like more investigation.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly ask NISBA. I mean, I came across this, I'd been looking at a different school district's board recently for reasons. And they have 5-year terms. And then I was also looking at Messina because they just passed their DEI policy and I wanted to see what they passed and I couldn't. There was a paywall to the newspaper there, so I tried to go to the board to see it, and I noticed that they have 5-year terms. So it seems, I mean, I can't say common, that's like 2 out of the 500 or whatever districts. But yeah, we can see if NISBA has information on it too.
And it might just be that historically, probably over the last 20 years, we used to have lots of people who would be interested in running for board seats. And now there are fewer and fewer, I think, who want to be involved this way. So I think districts have looked at maybe the people who are a longer term, because then you don't have to go out and run again quite so soon. I'm just thinking like Messina is kind of a relatively smaller community, maybe that's what they shifted to. But NISBA would be able to give us a lot of data
Right, yeah.
on that.
Yeah, I can ask for what they have, Jim, and ask them to share it with us. All right, are there any other items from the board? Thank you.
So first off, I would like to say congratulations to our indoor track and field team. They actually were at sectionals last Thursday, the athletes that made it, that qualified for that. There are a couple of athletes that from sectionals have qualified to go to states and nationals, but a huge shout out to the girls 4x400 meter relay team, Nola Bloom, Audrey Donovan, Annie Niger, and Maddie Schaefer are sectional champions. So congratulations to them, and also the many athletes that PR'd, which got their personal best times running in sectionals this past Thursday. So I would just love to give them a round of applause. And I'm just going to echo off Maura over there. Congrats to the cast and crew of Cinderella. Great performances. The hard work and many hours that they all put in paid off. And I think the entire world could take a lesson from Ella on kindness. What goes around comes around. So let's try to spread some kindness out there. And as always, thank you to our very devoted teachers, our staff, our support staff, our administrators for being here for our students every day. Thank you again, and enjoy your break next week.
Anything else? Okay, I believe we have a need for executive session this evening.
I don't have any.
Not a full-fledged exec, but could board members stay after, just briefly, or can we not do that?
I think we can. I mean, I think it would have to be a public meeting, so, so I do actually think we need an executive for personnel-related matters, yeah. Is there and there will not be a need for a vote after. Is there a motion to move to exec?
Sure, move to exec.
I'll second.
Jim and Tom. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.